You asked, so you shall receive. You asked for a tutorial on how to make these large bows, so today I'm going to show you just that. Let's get started and learn how to make a large fabric bow. These are actually like so simple. When I teach you how to make these, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I just think about that like myself? Me too, because I also had to look it up. But this is really easy. Now I'm going to tell you all the ingredients you need to make this bow pie. You're going to need a total of 4 panels, and if you want your bow to be reversible, you can make the back and the front different fabrics, or you can make the top and the bottom different fabrics. Whatever you want to do, you can do it, but you're going to need 4 total of what I'm about to tell you. So here's 2 and then here's 2 more. This is going to be a fall and a Christmas bow, and the reason why I have not made this tutorial for you all yet is because I didn't need to make any bows, but now we're going to make some fall and Christmas ones because it's definitely that time of the year. So you will need a 12 by approximately 42.5 to 44 inches long waist. So honestly, all that I did was I had my fabric folded like this, and I just took the entire length of that. So you can do that as well, and you can make these as big or as short as you want, or as big or as small as you want. It's up to you, but it is always 12 wide for the bow that I'm going to show you how to make, for how big it is. And again, if you want it to be smaller, then just take some inches away. So 12 by approximately 42.5 to 44 inches. So you need a total of 4 of those pieces measuring 12 by 42.5 to 44. The reason why it's 42.5 to about 44 is because this fabric, for some reason, you know how on fabric it has like the words and the different colors on the, like the end. Well, when I cut that off, it was like really going this way into the fabric, so I had to cut off more inches. But anyways, that length doesn't really matter too much. Your bow will still be big with these dimensions, but you will need 4 total of those. Then you will also need some type of thing to close the fabric that's going to go on top of your bow. So I'm just using Velcro. You can also use a button, or you can sew it, I think, but it might be difficult to fit your bow through that. So you can sew it, you can use Velcro, or you can use a button or a snap, whatever, but I'm going to use Velcro. Then you're also going to need 2 pieces measuring 3 by 10. These are also going to be either the same piece of fabric or different pieces of fabric, because this is also going to be reversible. So if you're making a bow just the same with the same fabric on the front and the back, then you need 2 of that piece. And then if you're making it reversible, you need 1 of each. Once again, measuring 3 by 10. Last but not least, you're also going to use some type of batting. I use Extra Loft from Hobby Lobby. The thicker the batting, the stiffer your bow is going to be, so keep that in mind. So once again, I use Extra Loft, and this is going to be the same size as your fabric pieces, or just a little bit bigger, because we're going to quilt this. So once again, Extra Loft, the same size or just a little bit bigger than your fabric pieces. And you're going to need 2 pieces if you want to use only 1 for your entire bow, or you can use 4 pieces so you can quilt both sides of your bow. I only quilt one side of my bow, that's why I only have 2, but if you want to quilt both sides of your bow, then use 4 pieces. So we're just going to go ahead and get the easiest thing out of the way, even though this entire process is pretty easy. We're going to take the right side of this 3 by 10 and we're going to put it on the right side of our other piece of fabric. Make sure if you have a directional fabric, the direction of your fabric is facing the same way for both of your pieces. So you're going to put right sides together. Then you can clip or pin around this, leaving a spot open, so do not sew right there, so you can flip it right side out. After we take this to the sewing machine and we do a top stitch around, we're going to flip it right side out. And before you flip it right side out, make sure you cut off the corners so it's not bunching up right there. Once we flip it right side out, we are going to take it to the iron to give it a press so it will look a lot neater. So if you have an iron, go ahead and get that ready and turned on, and let's go sew this. For everything that we're sewing today, I'm going to use the end of my presser foot as the seam allowance, which is about 3/8. Once you have this flipped right side out and you ironed it, we're going to do a top stitch all the way around. And okay, I know I just said that the seam allowance is 3/8 for everything except for this and except for the quilting. Okay, but anyways, we're going to do a top stitch all the way around to close up this hole, and then the top stitch is going to be pretty close to the edge. You just want to make sure you actually get that hole shut. So just, you know, do that. So I have not made one of these bows in a little while, so let me try to tell you something that will hopefully make sense. So this is non-directional on both sides. So this, you can see the candy canes are going this way, but they're also going this way. So it's like non-directional. Even if it went like this, it would still be non-directional unless you want the lines to go a certain way. This side is also non-directional because all of these designs are going every direction. So both of my fabric pieces are non-directional. So however this is going to be looped around the fabric doesn't really matter because it's going to be looking good in the right way. However, if you do have a directional fabric, you really want to pay attention when you're putting these pieces together before you sew. Like when I said right pieces together, you want to pay attention which way the direction of the fabric is going. So say for this fabric, both of the candy canes were going upward. I would want to lay this with it going straight. And then this fabric, say all of these designs were also going up. I would want to turn this fabric this way and then lay it on top of the candy canes. So that way, when we put the Velcro on, it will make more sense. But that way, when we're using this, it will go the right direction. That literally only matters if you care which part of the Velcro is going to be on top when you wrap this around your bow. If you don't care, then it doesn't matter. But I do care. When I put this Velcro on, I want the Velcro piece, I want this top flap to be on the top instead of the bottom, if that makes sense. So when I wrap this around my bow, I want it to look like this instead of it looking like this, because it's just easier to gather all the fabric when this piece is on top. And that's why it matters which direction you put your fabric together. So once again, if you do have directional fabric, put one of your fabric pieces, right sides together always, put one of your fabric pieces facing this way and one of your fabric pieces facing this way. Like the design will face this way for the bottom piece and the design will face this way for the top piece, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does, but that literally only matters if you care if this flap is on top or on the bottom. But like I said, I do care and I want it on top. Now we're going to add our Velcro or your buttons or your snaps or whatever you want to use to be able to make this close. Once again, I'm using Velcro. How we're going to attach our Velcro to our fabric piece does matter too, because you want to make sure that it's actually going to close. If you put both of these on the top, it's not going to close because we need one of the pieces to overlap like this. If we had both pieces of Velcro on it facing the same side of fabric, it's not gonna close. So when we put this Velcro on here, we want one piece to be on the top, and then we're going to flip our fabric over so the other piece is going to be on the bottom on the opposite side. So like this. I actually like to put my Velcro on long ways because that will help it catch more of the Velcro when we wrap it around the bow. So we're going to have one piece on the top, and then we're going to have one piece on the bottom on the opposite side. So that way when we sew it on, it can actually attach. Now the strap is done that we're going to wrap around our bow. Again, as you can tell, the Velcro is on two different sides of the fabric. If you can see, it's on this side and on this side and on opposite ends, on opposite sides. So when you wrap it around your bow, it can actually work. There we go. Alright, that's done, so we can set that aside. And now we're going to start quilting our bow. You don't have to quilt your bow. If you don't, you can use some basting spray or just baste around your fabric. But if you are going to quilt it, that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to get our batting and we're going to put that underneath our fabric, and we're going to make sure it's all nice and lined up, and we're going to pin it or clip it, and then we're going to take it to the sewing machine. I do about 4 inches I think to quilt this, and I only do vertical lines, but you can use cross hatch, you can use like a square, you can literally quilt it however you want to quilt it, and you can make the quilt lines however many inches apart as you want. All of this is really up to you. This is just the basics of how to make it your own, do whatever you want. Alright, let's clip and then quilt. Before you get sewing, and honestly before you cut, sorry for not saying it before, but if you're like not totally a beginner to sewing, then you should already know this. But before you cut, if you do have directional fabric, make sure the fabric is always going whatever direction you want it to go. I want mine to go up and down, so I have my candy canes going up and down. Once again, I'm only quilting one side of my bow. The other side is not going to be quilted because I'm only using one piece of batting for the top and the bottom pieces of this bow. But if you want your bow to be stiffer and more sturdy, then you can have 2 pieces of batting, then you can quilt both fabric pieces, the top, the bottom, and the front and the back. So all 4 fabric pieces. But I'm only going to do the top and the bottom of one side of my bow. So that's all that I'm quilting, and then when I'm done quilting this, then I'm just going to stack all my fabric together and then sew it, and then we're going to be almost done. does not take that long to make these. It actually does take a little bit longer than you would think, but that's probably just because of the quilting. But other than that, they're really simple to make and they don't take that long. Once you're done quilting, now we're going to take it back to the cutting board and we're just going to cut off any extra batting, and then we're going to start stacking stuff together and we're getting close to being done. Now we're going to start stacking the fabric so we can sew it all together. So we're going to make sure, if you have directional fabric, that the direction of the fabric is facing this way. So make sure your design is facing this way and like you're looking at it and it's facing you. Then we're going to take our top piece, and once again, I have a reversible bow, so my fabrics are different, but it doesn't really matter if yours is the same or different. We're just going to take that next piece of fabric. Once again, I only use one piece of batting. If you use two, this will also be quilted. And you're going to take the right side of this fabric, also facing that direction, and you're going to lay right sides together. Make sure it's laid on there nicely where all of the sides match up, and then once it does, you can clip and pin all the way around, leaving a space open at the top or at the bottom. It doesn't matter, because when we flip it right side out, we're going to do a top stitch all the way around, but you want to leave a spot open at the top or at the bottom, or the side if you want, but top or bottom. And we're not going to sew in that space because we need to flip it right side out. So we're going to clip it or pin it, and then we're going to sew all the way around and leaving a spot open so we can turn it right side out. For the top piece of the bow, we're going to sew all the way around and then we're going to leave a spot open like I said. But for the bottom piece, if you want your bow to have like those little divots in it and to go like that, if that makes sense. If you want it to be a square, leave it a square. If you want it to be like curved, then curve it. But I'm going to make it where it's like, what is it called? It looks like this at the end. It's like dovetailed or something. I'm not sure, but that's what we're gonna do now. So I have a triangle that I made just as a template out of some cardstock paper, but since yours is also going to be 12 inches wide, if you're using a different measurement, then you can measure it to your size of your bow. But since this is 12 inches wide, what you can do, you can fold your bow in half. You can cut from this corner up to this 6-inch mark that is on your cutting board. So where it says 6 at the top is where you're going to cut, and then from this corner. Make sure when you fold it, you pay attention to how you're cutting it. So since I folded it like this, I'm going to cut this direction. But if I did fold it the other way, then I would cut that direction. You just want to make sure once you cut it out that this part in the middle is what's getting cut out. I'm just going to show you so you can see what it looks like. So if you make yourself a template, or if I'm not making any type of sense, I'm going to put this on here, and I'm just going to draw it on there with my template. So, and this is what it looks like. So when I take this to the sewing machine, I'm going to go around all the edges, but when I get to right here, I'm going to sew where this line is. And then after it's sewn, I can cut this triangle out. I hope that makes sense. So once again, this is only for your bottom piece. If you want it to look this way, you can make the bottom look however you want it to look. It can stay a square. That might look kind of interesting. Or you can do like a curve. I know some people do just curve it. But if you want it to look like this, again, whatever it's called, I'm not sure, like a dovetail or something, we're going to sew it all the way around. And then when we get to this line, we're just going to sew on top of this line. And we're going to leave a spot open. So do not sew right there, so we can flip it right side out. But before you flip it right side out, we are going to cut this triangle off after we're done sewing, because that just makes it easier. You can cut it before and then just take it to your sewing machine where it's already cut off. But I think it's easier this way. Here is the bottom piece of the bow. Like I said, I sewed all the way around and then I sewed down these lines. Now I'm going to cut this triangle out. I'm going to cut it out on both sides, making sure I leave enough space where I'm not accidentally cutting over the sewn line that we just did. This is what it should look like once we cut out that triangle, and it's still sewn together, so make sure you're cutting under the sewn line, not above the sewn line. So it's still sewn together, and now this is what it's going to look like when we flip it right side out, only on the bottom piece. This is only for the bottom, not for the top. And we're going to do that on both ends of our bottom piece. We're also going to cut off each corner of the top bow piece, so that way when we turn it right side out, it's not going to be too bunched up. Once we have our bow pieces flipped right side out, we're going to make sure we poke out our corners on the top and the bottom of our bows. And then we're going to take the part that we left open to flip it right side out, and we're going to roll it down to make sure it looks nice and neat, stack it on top of itself, and you can clip or pin right there. And then you can just sew right there if you want to, but I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around. If you do just want to sew that part closed and not sew all the way around, make sure when you sew this yourself that you flip it right side out for the bottom piece on the top. So flip it right side out on the top, leave a hole right there on the top, and for the top piece on the bottom, so that way when we pin the bow together you won't be able to see it. But since I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around, it doesn't matter. We have one more step to sew and then we're done and we can start assembling the bow. So we're going to take the top piece of our bow and we're going to fold it in half. So this is what it looks like, and we're going to fold it in half. And if you have a reversible bow, it doesn't matter which side you do this on because it's reversible, so the raw edge, but it's not raw because we already sewed it and it's flipped the right way, but the raw edge will show when you reverse it, but it's not going to be seen when you put this piece over top of it. So it doesn't really matter which way you fold it, but we're going to take it like this and we're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to clip or pin right along right here, and then we're going to do a top stitch right there, and we're going to do a top stitch pretty close to the edge but not too close to the edge, just to make sure that we keep the width or length of the bow. Now we're done sewing and this is what it should look like. We have our bottom piece looking like this, and mine is again reversible, so 2 different fabrics. And then we have the top piece. This is where we just sewed that top stitch, but we're going to open it up to look like this, and then on the inside is a different fabric. And now we're going to start assembling it. Since my bow is reversible, I'm going to show you what both sides look like when they're done. So this is my first time making the panel like this. Usually I just do one piece of fabric, but this time I did this. But I will say, next time I will probably make this middle piece a little bit wider so I can have more of this design showing. But anyways, that's besides the point. But you're going to lay out your bow like this. The part that we just sewed for the top part is in the middle. So take that, it was like this, now take the fold and put that in the middle. And then try to make it even where this is in the middle of the bottom piece. Now we're going to take this piece and get it ready. So since it's reversible, I'm going to use this side. And then I have one of these. This is actually a book ring, and if you want the exact same thing that I have it on my Amazon storefront. I also have this batting, like extra loft batting, on my Amazon, but I do, like I said, I do get my batting from Hobby Lobby. It is a little cheaper there since they have their sales. But if you don't have a Hobby Lobby near you, or you just don't want to go to Hobby Lobby, I do have an extra loft batting also on my Amazon storefront. And again, this is also on my Amazon storefront. But you can use like something like this, or you can use a string, or whatever way you want to be able to hang up your bow. And I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to put it on top of this fabric to have that ready to go. I'm going to set that aside for right now. Then I'm going to take my bottom piece and I'm just going to scrunch it up, making sure like it's evenly scrunched. And then I'm going to take the top piece and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to just scrunch it up. And this is why it matters. If you did not do a top stitch all the way around for your bottom piece, if you left this hole open at the top, that's why it needs to be at the top, because we want this to not be seen. And then if you didn't do a top stitch all the way around for the top, we want the hole to be left open on the bottom, so when we put it together that won't be seen. But if you did a top stitch all the way around, then it won't matter. So again, we're just going to take this and scrunch it up, and we're going to do the same for the top and just scrunch it up, trying to make it look even in our scrunching, if that makes sense. Now we're going to take this piece and we're going to wrap it around our bow and then flip it over. This just helps close it easier and better. Whether you have a snap or a button or Velcro, it doesn't matter. But right now we're just going to close it. And then we're going to flip it back over and we're going to give it a fluff. That's what makes these bows so cute, is to fluff it. Some people don't know that. It's a secret. Don't tell anybody. I'm teaching you how to make this, but don't tell anybody else. Unless you're going to send them to my video, then you can tell them. But anyways, we're going to fluff it because that's what makes it really nice and good. So that's why I'm comfortable with only using one piece of batting, because I fluff it and it looks good. But again, if you want it to be stiffer or sturdier, then you can use 2 pieces of batting on the top and the bottom. So this is what the fall side looks like. Oh my goodness, so cute. Like I said, I think I would actually make this strap a little bit bigger, but let me know what you think. Is it cute? Do you like it? And then because this is a different fabric on the back, there are actually 4 different ways that you can make this. I think it's 4, but if this weren't Christmas, I could actually turn the bottom piece around and then that would give this bow a new look, or I can turn the top piece around and keep the bottom and that would give it a new look, or I can completely reverse both sides and then it will be Christmas. And this is gonna be so cute. Look, here we go. Here's the fall. Now I'm gonna show you what the Christmas looks like. And here's the Christmas. It is so cute. I actually got this fabric, this Christmas one, from Hobby Lobby. If you like it, I got this other fabric from a different store that y'all won't know about because it's only like local to me. But this is from Hobby Lobby if you like the Christmas fabric. But it is so cute, and it is, like I said, it's really sturdy and fluffy. Make sure you fluff your bow. But yeah, isn't it adorable? Let me know if you like the fall or the Christmas design better, or if you just like the entire bow. I also have one more that I'm going to make a little bit differently than how I've been making my original bows, because like I said, I've only made it where I keep the fabric like this. I don't cut it or mix match like I did on this side for the inside of this fall bow. But I have another one for fall and Christmas where I'm going to do a little bit of a different design than this, and it's gonna be so cute. Let me know if y'all want to see like a picture or something for that. I probably won't do a video because I just did this tutorial, but let me know if you want to see that. And if you don't follow me on my other socials, then go follow me so you can see that bow when it is ready. And if you like this bow, it will be available on my Etsy unless somebody buys it before you can get there, but it will be on my Etsy if you're interested in buying this bow by the time you see this video. Let me know if you all enjoyed this tutorial, and let me know if you're gonna go give it a go. And if you do, I don't know how you can send me the picture, but try to figure out how to send me the picture because I want to see the bows that you all make. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this tutorial was helpful for you all, and y'all have fun making these bows. You can keep them for yourself, make them for family, or sell them at some craft shows. I don't know, but let me know if you make them. I hope you all enjoyed this video once again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!